You know, I love Easter because this is one of the most metaphysical events in our history on this planet. It was witnessed by so many people. It was written about by so many people. The song you just heard was possibly what did those early disciples feel and think when it happened and they got to be a part of it. You know, we're prepared for it today. In our world, we're exposed to all manner of odd metaphysical things. It's like, oh yeah, I talked to my grandma ghost yesterday. Of course you did. You know, we are aware of spirit, but in that day and time, when the veil broke for the first time, what would they have thought? And I love that Christianity is founded on metaphysics. They don't even know it. This is a metaphysical occurrence where the matter of physicality moves to spirit. It's the basis of what we believe and what we teach. So, we're going to start with that. I was guided to bring us just some awarenesses that I think will absolutely help us as we move in our own worlds. But in Jesus' day, just so that we understand the basis of what he had come into, in Jesus' day, all of the eyes were on the mortal world around them. They wanted, especially in his faith, in the Jewish faith, they wanted God, their creator God, to save them from the oppressor. Right? They were all being oppressed at the time by Rome, and their prayer was, save us from the oppression of Rome. So, God, save me from what is happening here in my world, in the outer world. And Jesus actually had told them, you know, things are going to get a little rough for you guys. In his prophecies, he told them, what you think is going to live long as your basic religious faith isn't. And I'll share that with you in just a minute. So he was trying to get their eye on spirit, and their eye was on matter. Jesus said, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And they would say to him, but you don't understand. When the wolf is at the door, demanding from you and threatening to kill you if you do not comply, we need God right here, right now to deal with this wolf. We need a God that deals with the outer world, our oppressors. So do you see his challenge, Jesus' challenge was to show people about God as spirit, and also to show them that the power that you see in the world around you is not the eternal power. It was a tough mission, yes? All right. There was conflict between spirit and matter. He had to change the ideas so they could understand that by changing your thoughts you create matter. And remember how he started? He started with the Beatitudes. That was his first recorded big sermon, Sermon on the Mount, when he started his work in Israel. And the Beatitudes are all about change your thought and you'll change your world. Be kind and the world will respond in kind. Be generous and the world will be generous to you. It was not a call about the outer at all. It wasn't a call to make make things right, or to take your power in your own hands, or to do anything overt. It was change within you, and your world would change. He was teaching them spirit was within them. And that's such an easy thing to do, isn't it? Change our life, and then the world will change around us. But the people wanted to be free from that oppressor. When Jesus was taken into court, I wanted to read this to you. This is the only thing that we have that chronicles what he was accused of. He was taken into court, and this is the paper that they levied against him. Of course, he's an impostor and a foe. He blasphemes God. He says he is Son of God. He profanes holy days by healing people on those holy days. He proclaims himself king in the line of David. He declares he'll tear our temple down and build it again in 3 days, more glorious. And I want you to hear this. He declares he will drive the people from Jerusalem, and bring to occupy our sacred hills a tribe of men that know not God. He says that every doctor, scribe, and Pharisee and Sadducee will go into exile and never return again. Jesus said those things. He never said, I will do that. He said it's going to happen. It is going to happen that every one of you who pontificates in this moment may live to see the time when you will be running for the hills. Certainly, your offspring will. And the odd thing is that we don't even realize in less than 50 years from the day he was crucified, in less than 50 years, in 70s AD, Jerusalem was sacked. The temple was torn to pieces. It was actually sacked in 3 different times, but the complete annihilation of the Jewish faith occurred in less than 50 years. I want you to really hear what I'm saying. Their faith was destroyed. Their temple was destroyed. They left in waves. The people who had the foresight to see would leave. But the place where they sacrificed, the work that they did, the God they worshipped, how they worshipped, was destroyed. They no longer had a temple. They no longer had a way to do their sacrifices. They no longer had a way to live the religion they had. And that's when it became more of the rabbinic Jewish faith that we know today. But it had to morph. He wasn't threatening them. He was telling them, your oppressor is going to continue. Because you have to change inside. And that which you cling to so desperately to the outer is also going to be destroyed. Could they hear? Could we hear if someone told us that? Oh, heck no. And if someone told us that something like that would happen to us, would we even take steps to change it? Nah, probably not. Because we're content. Life's good for us now. We're content. Just stop the wolf at the door. Just stop the wolf at the door. I want you to hear how deeply entrenched in matter they were. Can you feel that with me? So deeply entrenched in matter. So, you realize there is no talk of the fall of Jerusalem in the New Testament. Do you guys realize that? Every book in the New Testament talks about Jesus and his followers and things that happened, but it never references Jerusalem falling. And Jerusalem fell in the 70s. Most of those books were not written until the 90s. It had happened long ago. And if you think that the Christians had a vendetta against the Jews, don't you think they would have written about it? And yep, and that temple fell and Jesus was right and la-di-da-da. They didn't. And it makes you kind of think, were the eyes of the early Christians more on spirit than we know? They actually write at one point about a cosmic Christ. About the cosmic Christ spirit. And we don't know who authored this. It's not one of Paul's letters. A cosmic Christ spirit that came into the people that they can connect with. Is it possible that those early people really knew? It's about spirit. It's about spirit. And down the line, we've been traversing 2,000 years, and to us, it's about spirit and matter, right? It's about spirit, and it's about matter too. But we are learning the path Jesus left us, which is how you change matter, is change your spirit. Go within and change who you are. All right. Jesus brought such a tender space to us. I have always said in my teachings that when Jesus Christ went to the cross, which for us is like we can't understand why, but he was demonstrating that death is an illusion. People actually publicly saw him die, and they actually publicly saw him after the death. Many, many people. It's more than what is chronicled in the New Testament. There's other works that chronicle hundreds of people seeing him. So a public death and a public resurrection, public teachings after that, lets people realize death is an illusion, and they did fear death. They had no spiritual understanding what happened after they crossed over. So his demonstrating this gave them the peace of eternity, gave them belief of eternity. His submitting to the outer authority of Rome and of their own Jewish faith. his submitting to the wolf at the door and said, I will submit to you. I will let you do what you want to with me. And then his rising up back into matter gave people an understanding not to fear that which appears to be in power around you. What a beautiful gift that is as well. Don't fear what you think has power over you, because you have the ultimate power. You are eternal and you are spirit. And how much of our lives in the last 2,000 years have we all lived fearing the wolf at the door? This idea that wants to oppress us, this person that wants us to do what they want us to do, without even letting our spirits rise to become greater. I know we're changing in our world today. But we're a metaphysical Christian church and we've been around for 28 years. And I can't tell you how often someone has said to me, they've been brought to our church and they sit next to a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? They didn't come of their own accord. And they said, Cindy, that was really nice. It was a good service. I was praying the whole time that God did not strike me dead for being there. Seriously. I did not know if I was going to get hit by lightning, hit by a car, that I am defiling God because I'm even thinking about an idea outside of what the precepts of the world have given me. And those are wolves at the door. Anything that limits us and makes us not look to our own spirit and says, I have power over you. I have power over you. You see? And this is the antithesis of what he brought to the planet. This is the antithesis of that magnificence that he brought to us. We do not need to appease an outer power. We need to become the inner power. We need to become that beautiful Christ. You know what Jesus did when we know the story, he was in the tomb, and we know that the angel came and the White Brotherhood was there, and they took the Roman seal, and an angel took it off the tomb and opened the tomb, and Jesus was there, and it says that Jesus said, he welcomed the new day. He welcomed the rising sun. All hail the rising sun, the coming of the day of righteousness. And he folded up his burial gown, and he laid it aside, and he rose. And the weaker soldiers, the soldiers that were there guarding the tomb, the weaker soldiers fell on their knees, frightened. The stronger ones stood and watched, and they saw him transmute from mortal to immortal, and then he disappeared in front of their eyes. And then they heard a voice from nowhere say, peace, peace on earth, goodwill to men. What would your mind have done if you had been there to see that? Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Would you immediately begin to edit it? I didn't really see that. That didn't really happen. No. I heard that voice. I don't know what that means. That was my own head. I need to go home. To see spirit, we have to have the eyes of spirit. And every time Jesus appeared to someone, he never brought condemnation. There's a beautiful story in the Aquarian where he actually goes back to the Jewish temple in disguise. He's got a hood over. And Caiaphas, who was one of the men who was instrumental in getting him crucified, is there, leading a little caucus of some sort. And Jesus says, hey, what happened to that guy, that fisherman that you guys crucified? What happened there? And, oh, he was terrible, he was bad, and then he's died, and then his people came and stole him out of the tomb, and blah, blah. And Jesus took his hood off, and Caiaphas saw him, and they knew who he was. And he showed him his hands. And he said, every one of the men who said that my people took me from the tomb was paid. And I challenge you to have one of them stand before me now and say they witnessed that. Caiaphas was terrified. Can you imagine? They were terrified because they had perpetuated this story. And then Jesus looked at him and he said to him, peace, peace to all who are here, peace and goodwill to mankind. Jesus didn't have a personal vendetta with anybody. He didn't have a personal agenda with anybody. He was here to open the energy of heaven so it could pour onto the planet. Peace and goodwill to mankind. When we think about that beautiful energy of that moment when he was on the cross, and as human beings, we don't want to think about, I don't want to see anybody I love hurt. That's just, I don't want to see anybody I don't love hurt. We don't want to experience that. But there was that moment that's chronicled when he is getting ready to cross over, and he says, God, and into your hands I commend my spirit. God, my Father. But before he says that, I want you to hear me. God, when you are praying and you are asking to connect with God and you feel that flood of light coming to you, can you feel it? On Good Friday, if anyone ever does a Good Friday communion anywhere with us, you walk in the door and it's like, the energy is so here. Our service Friday was amazing. I almost could not talk. I was so moved by the presence of God's love pouring through the place. And it wasn't inspirational words I said, I could barely talk. It was the presence of God connecting. When Jesus Christ was on the cross and he is saying, God, my Father, this is a Christed being. Can you imagine the energy that poured to the planet at that moment? Can you imagine? He is calling it forth for all mankind. God, the energy would have been tremendous. And then when he lifted his spirit to God, they say the sun was dark, the earth started to quake, the veil in the temple that separated the inner sanctuary from the outer sanctuary where only the priests were allowed tore. And everything started to rumble when he crossed. The energy of God moving into this limited space of mankind, something had to give. Something had to sway and give way. And it poured into not just Jesus Christ, but all mankind. And this beautiful energy just bathed the planet. Now, we don't know when exactly the full baptism occurred, if it was at the ascension or at the resurrection, but when he called that name, the power of a Christ on the planet connecting with the greater, our Father, shook matter. And who needed to see the matter shaken? Everybody. They needed to see it shaken because they couldn't explain that away. No. And too many people were there. Too many people saw it. And literally there was damage from the earthquake. And when they took his body off, it calmed. When they got his body, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus got his body, it calmed. And when he resurrected, remember the tomb, it was just 100 soldiers. There weren't many people there. Just the perfect people that needed to see him actually open his eyes. The perfect people. That beautiful, beautiful connection with Spirit, God's presence. In White Eagle, I wanted to share this with you. This is very small, but I love White Eagle. This is Jesus, Teacher, Healer. And he talks a lot about Jesus' energy and the energy he brought to us and what he was trying to teach us. As children, when you're trying to teach a child something, how often at parents do you say, "'Cause I said so"? Because you get a point where you can't explain it anymore. I can't talk to where you are. So I'm just going to say, do it. And I wonder how often Jesus might have felt that way. Let me say it this way. Just be with that. I can't talk to where you are. And he said, I have so much more to tell you. But I can't. You can't hear me. White Eagle says this. By his crucifixion, a spiritual power baptized the earth, and the radiation of which has lasted for 2,000 years. Because a Christ of God, one who knew he was a Christ, manifested mastery over matter, manifested healing the sick, manifested multiplying matter. He manifested being spirit, and spirit creates matter. And he knew that. When he bathed the earth, and then when he allowed the cells of his being to be emitted through the planet, he left a pattern for us to follow. And that's all he ever said. I came to create a pattern for you to follow. Now, sometimes we've interpreted that we need to go put ourselves on a cross and die. But that's really not what that is about. It's about a pattern for us to let go of the hold that matter has on us, the hold we have on it. Jesus' mission was physical. He had to submit his body to an outer authority. His mission was emotional. The people had to feel their own attachments to great anger, great grief. Some of them were so mad at him. How dare you disrupt my belief in God? How dare you threaten my belief in God? What are you doing? Why are you dying? We love you. We need you. Stay with me. It was emotional. It was mental. Their thoughts could be challenged. The ones that didn't like him said, save yourself. The ones that did said, what's happening? We've seen you do miracles. Where are you? What happened? Don't you think every one of his disciples said, what is going on? They didn't know. And it was a spiritual mission. They needed to feel God deeper. They needed to feel God around them instead of God through that one man, through Jesus. All right. God is spirit, and those who worship God must worship God in spirit and in truth. Changing the little thoughts within will change the outer awareness. If there is a wolf at the door, sit down and talk to God. Don't beat the wolf. Sit down and be with God. The pattern is this. Realize that you're living in fear. When you realize you're living in fear, you can decide if you want to stay there or not. How many of you like living in fear and it's very comfortable? How many of you like getting squished as small as you possibly can be because fear is pushing you down? That's what happens. And we get so tiny we forget we used to be big. Realize you're living in some limitation. Realize that. Then we have to be willing to say no more. I'm going to stop. And we don't stop and put our dukes up and start fighting. We don't stop and smack something down. We stop and we say no more. And we withdraw our attachment to what has been going on. We release our attachment to the outer. We let go. We let go. Do you realize you cannot let go when you are still focused on what you're ticked off at? You're still there. To realize, to stop, you have to let go. And letting go means pulling away from everything for a minute. You go into that burial chamber, you go within and you let go of everything for a minute. Have you ever seen anybody pull away and say, I need some space. I'll be back. But today, I need some space. And then we turn to God and we say, God, lift me. Fill me with something greater. I need love. God, my Father, we are calling on God as Jesus called on God. God, I don't got it in here. I don't got it in here. I need you to show me a better way, a higher way. And the answer you get will not be the answer someone else gets. You're God's child. You'll get your answer. And when you get that and you can breathe it in, then you too have that resurrection, that where you're born again, and then you live at that higher level of consciousness. That's Metaphysics 101. It's a pattern we all follow when we seek to lift up. If you are living at a different level of consciousness than you did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you've already done this many times. If you're living at the same consciousness you did when you were 10 years old, then you haven't done it. I came to give a pattern to mankind. They can touch God. They can feel the Spirit of God. They can lift, change their lives, and they will live in a world of heaven on earth, a world of peace. Do you love Easter?
Yes.
All right. When we're, take a breath. The veil is thin. The veil is thin. So we can readily feel and be inspired and take that energy in. And then, you know, what comes next in the April 15th? Now we're dealing with the power outside of self. You know, we're talking about an oppressor again as we file our taxes. But if we changed one thought, one belief about ourselves in this Easter moment, that will begin to vibrate in our world. And the matter around us will also begin to change. Do you feel your gratitude to God?
Yes.
All right, well, let's anchor this in. Let's go within. If you put your feet on the floor. Just take a breath. Father, Mother God, overshadow this room and all who hear this message. And we open, we call your name, we call upon your presence. God. Father, move through each soul here, move through our physical bodies, move through our thoughts, our emotions, our beingness. God. And just feel the room full of life and light. And now let your focus go to you, your heart, your body, your beingness. And just say, I am. I am. Feel that beautiful God flowing through. Acknowledge it, feel it. And in your heart, open. And ask to feel the presence of Jesus Christ standing by your side, stepping forward. I want you to take his hand today. You take his hand. You put your hand on his heart. And thank him. Thank you for the gift that you brought to mankind. And feel a oneness just beginning to move between you. As if there is no separation. There is only love. Breathe in the great love that is in him and in you. There is only love. Let it fill you to overflowing. Father, Mother God, into each soul, we ask that the pattern of their divine perfection be awakened. In this energy of love, we ask that they be restored to their own joy and bliss, and that the connection with you, God, be constant. And if you choose that for yourself, breathe it in. Father, Mother God, thank you for this beautiful planet where we can truly live heaven on earth. Feel that love of Jesus Christ with you. Feel your desire to shine in this world. And let your focus come back to your heart, to your body as it sits in the chair, to the beautiful shining of your energy field. I am God's child, here to live heaven on earth. And I am grateful. And we thank you, God. Take a breath. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Well, as you go forth today, take that beautiful love of God. Be in it, bathe in it, celebrate it. Remember, we're not alone. It just takes choice. And as you choose, things can change. Say, yeah, God. Yeah.